Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Samso. This was supposed to be the first one for the year, but have a few minor technical issues, and you're number 2 on the line. I've got Tom Reddicliffe here today. We're going to be talking diamonds. We're at the Mill Point Bookshop Cafe in South Perth here. So Tom, far away.
Well, good to be back talking about our favourite subject, Noel.
Tragic subject.
Yes, it is actually. Sad, isn't it?
That's not a good start to a video. But anyway.
No. Well, you know.
No, but
it all takes time.
I did an article on diamonds just last week, and it got a lot of response. Actually, a lot of the North Americans liked it. And the PDAC's on next week, which I thought was good timing. Obviously, it struck a chord. Obviously, they're fairly active, I guess. You know, as I mentioned in the article, I was quite surprised how active they are as compared to Australia, and you know, or the perception that it's active.
Yeah. Well, I think there's, you know, there is a lot of interest, you know, but when it comes to financing, you know, great ideas and these sorts of things, these diamond projects, it's a little bit difficult.
I think, I was at the RIU conference this week, and I think all explorers are finding it still hard to find the dollar. But I think our tragic subject is a little bit harder. We haven't seen really any real activity since the days of Cambridge Gulf and Maureen Muggeridge's is it Moonstone, those days, and Ashton days and things like that.
Yep.
So I think but I like to bring up, you know, what you guys are doing, the Webb project, which I think is especially interesting because it, you know, in terms of the Webb project, I think I like what it brings to the market. It's something different as opposed to, well, let's face it, I haven't seen anything this promising or an exploration project for a while, I think. Yeah,
look, Webb's almost getting an old story now. It's a very large kimberlite field, so it's just not a lay down misere, I guess. And so it's very difficult, well, not difficult, but, you know, tedious, I suppose, and costly to sift through, you know, the field, and because there's so many targets, you know, some 300 odd, and we don't have a real good vector to go to the best one first. Okay, and that's because of the thick transported cover that is there, which is about 30 metres, so anything we see at surface doesn't relate immediately to what's underneath. And that's the sort of key issue, one of the key issues. The other one is that we've tested, you know, less than a quarter of these kimberlite pipes, and the ones today have got no diamonds in. And that's reflected in the mineral chemistry as well. You know, we get the odd grains from the diamond inclusion field, and but they're not abundant, put it that way. However, the field would appear to have straddled or sampled across the diamond graphite transition zone. So when you look at the distribution of the field as you go north, the pipes seem to have been, based on the studies that we've been able to do, sourced to deeper, and some have tapped into the diamond field. And just by sheer coincidence, I guess, is that in the northern part of the field is there this rather, I suppose, tantalising spread of microdiamonds in this general location where we do find some diamond field indicator minerals, spinels, and where the pipes and mineralogy suggest that they've tapped deeper. So, you know, it's not in my mind anyway, not a great leap of faith to imagine that those microdiamonds have sourced out of that kimberlite field, you know, rather than, more unlikely, they've drifted in from some other place and just happened to plonk themselves over the top of the kimberlite field. Because it's a weak microdiamond anomaly, but it's quite repeatable. You know, you take 3 samples or so, you'll pick up a microdiamond. The loam sampling is quite sparse. You know, 1 sample every couple of square k's. The diamonds have colour, shape, and so forth, but they're just microdiamonds, and they're in the, you know, it's a desert terrain out there with sand dunes and whatever, so they're just in the, you know, surface sands.
I guess what you're saying is that diamond exploration is a game of statistics, and it's you're not saying that it's coming from a kimberlite, but as well at the same time you're saying it's very unlikely it's going to come from somewhere else. So in summation, it's more likely to come from somewhere in your cluster of kimberlites there.
Well, that's right, because, well, ultimately, right, the diamonds would have, given their shape and crystal shapes and whatever, there's a third of them are octahedrons, and there's a couple of macles there.
Meaning they didn't travel
but meaning that they've come out of a kimberlite, right?
Yeah.
Well, the nearest kimberlite field is the one that's right there, so that's presumably where they've come from, because you won't get a coherent, repeatable microdiamond anomaly that, generally speaking, that has travelled, you know, 100 kilometres or something like that, and happened to reconcentrate itself. You know, it's they tend not to do that. The further from source, the more dispersed they get, because they don't really concentrate, and so therefore they're difficult to, in a sampling program. You know, you don't pick them up frequently enough, you know, because the dispersion is too widespread. So we imagine that these have come out of one of the kimberlites, okay, and got into the cover transported sediments, and that's what they're eroding out of now, okay. Because we do recover. We've recovered a couple of micros out of that cover sequence as well from drilling, and you get indicator minerals as well, you know. But so that's sort of where, and we generally know which way the cover was travelling, and so we sort of say, well, we should be heading in a certain direction, and you know, in that particular area, I suppose there's probably only, you know, 50 pipes or something like that we can see in the magnetics, rather than the 300, you know. So that's where we think we should be.
I mean, maybe to give context, give us an sort of summation of how you guys came across the project, or the history of that project.
Well, where it originated, this goes back into the 1990s. The government flew a regional 400 metre line spacing aeromag survey, okay, and these targets were able to be seen in the data set, okay, as, you know, essentially little bullseyes or pimples in the data set, and they were deemed to be of interest. And this actually goes right back to the Ashton days, in fact, when Ashton Gold were up there looking for gold and so forth. So
this would have been, what, the 80s?
No, 1990s.
Okay.
Because this survey was in the 1990s. Okay, so however, it is on Aboriginal reserve area, okay, and for a long period of time access was denied by the local people, okay, and the BHP were also operating up there in a JV with Ashton, and as late as in the 2002 or 3 or something, they picked up that ground, and they thought they might be kimberlites. However, they could not get an access agreement. And so they decided that they weren't kimberlites and walked away from it. And that was fine. And then it was picked up by meteoric, the ground was picked up by Meteoric Resources, okay, with George Sakalides. He looked at those things, but they were actually there looking for IOCGs and, you know, stuff like that. But he recognised the implication or the importance of those targets and what they might be. He joint ventured the ground to North Australian Diamonds, where I was working, okay, because Ashton had become part of Rio. And they had sort of North Australian Diamonds, there was an access agreement put in place by Meteoric, but it had not been signed because of competing interests as to which land council was going to administer the arrangement. So whether it was going to be out of Alice Springs, where the Northern Territory, Central Land Council, or the one in the Central Desert in WA. So that took a couple of years to get finally sorted by the government, sorted it out. Okay, and so that allowed then the tenements to go through to grant. Okay, but North Australian Diamonds actually did the heritage survey and stuff like that. So North Australian Diamonds pulled out of that joint venture, and I had left North Australian Diamonds. And that's when I got together with Geocrystal, with Sladsas and so forth, and we approached Meteoric and entered into a joint venture to earn in. So as of today, our equity is roughly, I think, about 82% of the project. Okay, we've spent well in excess of $4 million there, private funds. Geocrystal is an unlisted public company, and we've had one big drill we've had quite a few drill programs. We had one big one in 2014, okay. Chalice Gold Mines were a big investor and a shareholder of Geocrystal. And we've sort of pushed it, bit by bit since then, to try and drill more targets, okay. When we were out there drilling in 2014, the loam sampling results only just started to trickle in, and because we're so smart, we had started in the southern part of the field. And the pipes actually, drilling-wise, they're a bit different. The ones to the north are really, really deeply weathered, you know. Now, you barely see any kimberlite down to 90-odd metres. And whereas the ones further to the south, you know, you can recognise the kimberlite at much shallower depths, 50 metres or so.
What's the dimension of these pipes?
Okay, it varies. We've not the dimensions I know, but they're based on what we see in the magnetics. We've not drilled any of them out seriously to see what their sizes are, but they're a few hundred metres. And there's one there where you've got a clustering of pipes, it seemed coalescing pipes or something, because the mag suggests it's about a kilometre long, and a few hundred metres wide.
That's pretty big.
It is, yeah. A bit like, I suppose, you might say Allendale 9 or something, where you've got 2 or 3 pipes joined together, Well, Argyle's like that as well. And
that's a bit of skill.
Yeah, and we see a variety of kimberlite types there, initially we thought it might have been all hyperbyssal, but we have run into diatreme facies and stuff like that, okay? But one of the things we haven't run into is diamonds in the kimberlite. I know it's a mere technicality now, but we believe we'll get there because we believe that those microdiamonds have meaning, Yeah,
I think you got, I guess, I didn't realise they were so big, because I'm used to the stuff that we had in Merlin. They're not, they're what, 50
Well, they're tiny,
metres.
tiny at the
Tiny.
surface and big underneath.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, well, you know, I guess in the sense that it's a process of elimination, as we know.
Well, it is. It's actually a numbers game, really. Sometimes at the end of the day, I mean, we're trying to be smarter about it, but you don't know anything about the kimberlite until you get a sample of it. That's the thing. And our approach has been quite simple: drill it, analyse for microdiamonds. None, keep moving. You know, we look at the indicators as well. Yeah, okay, well, that's consistent with the chemistry and so forth. But there is variations in the chemistry now, we see, depending on where you are. So there's a bit of variety there. And we've done some ground geophysics, and we see some of the mag signatures, some of the pipes are remnantly magnetised, you know, which might suggest that some of them, there might be different ages. Okay. We also find that sometimes the gravity responses, we've done a little bit of gravity there, are not coincident with the mag responses, you know. So that raised the possibility, well, you know, maybe there's some pipes there that you might be able to only detect them using gravity, and you know, the mag signature might be quite subtle because the mag, you know, we tend to be drawn to the best looking mag signatures, you know, the biggest and brightest, and there's some really spectacular strong anomalies there. But equally, you know, there's other weak ones, and it looks like there might be dike swarms through there as well, but we've not had the opportunity to test those yet, because maybe they're the source of the diamonds. And just on the diamonds, of course, you know, people would say, oh, well, they're only micro diamonds, and, you know, they're everywhere, and, you know, you're familiar with the spread of microdiamonds across the North Australian craton and so forth, and, you know, and on an A4 scale map, you know, they look quite dense, but they're not that dense. And the concentrations at Webb, and it's very specific, you know, we've done a lot of loam sampling there, and you go into this certain area and you get them. And but it's weak, but repeatable. But the concentrations there are 6 times what you would see, say, in the Northern Territory or something on, you know, random map sheets as part of the spread there, you know. It's much stronger than that. And it's just, and it has sort of form, you know, all the octahedrons are in one area, you know, it's not some sort of random, you know, cluster of fibrous cubes that you get a lot of in the Northern Territory. These are very, you know, it's like a micro population of diamonds, and I suppose they're micro diamonds, but, and you know, with their crystal shapes and stuff like that. So,
are they vectoring into your northern cluster?
Well, that's where they are. Yes, that's right.
They're all vectoring in there.
Yeah, the best mineral chemistry is up there. The spinel chemistry, the best grains are up in that area. The deepest source pipes happen to be up in that area as well, but we don't see any of the micros in them yet. You know. Okay, so it's everything points to that area, and you know, and it's sort of spread, seems to be spread in the, you know, in a east to west direction, which we think is the way these beds were transported. But
if you were sitting in front of you know, someone who's got a blank check, the question they ask is obviously, how much do you see you spending to a yes/no situation, and is there a scale factor if we did find something? Is that too long a bow to?
Well, what do you mean in terms of scale?
Like size, like is it going to be a small thing that we're going to find eventually? Is it going to be a potential of, like, you know?
Well, you know, you never quite know what you're going to get with diamonds and kimberlites, like Merlin. But I would imagine that these things are shallow, even though there's some cover, you know, they're shallow enough for an open pit operation, if we get one, so presumably.
I know there's a difference between quality and all that kind of
all of that, yeah. Look, we might ultimately find a source, and it might just be micro diamonds, you know. I mean, Unfortunately, the medium that we sample out there is not conducive to the recovery of commercial sizes. And because the micros and the commercial sizes, because of the different weights and so on, they tend to travel, separate out and travel separately, sort of thing. And this has been an alluvial situation that the commercial sizes have probably drifted off somewhere else, but the micros tend to float and get spread around and so forth. But microdiamonds are, the best indicator of diamonds, because they just tend to stick around and float around and whatever. And if you get near a diamondiferous field without even knowing what's in it, you'll start to see microdiamonds, And but you can't necessarily follow them back to a specific spot, or source. But the concentrations are much tighter and that around where they've sourced from, So that was the case at Merlin, from those things, even though there was very little outcrop or anything like that. The microdiamonds were there. The
difference in Merlin's, you had a geo who knew what he was doing.
Yeah, I know, Noel, I know. It was a sad day that you left, actually.
But, the first time you mentioned this project, I mean, you had all the facets, all that mystery, and it's all vectoring and pointing, the concentration. And when we first started, I think you were at the southern end, and then as it progressed, and then when you start telling me about how the northern side, I think, oh yeah, this is like, murder mystery kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things, but it's intriguing. Even as you're talking to me, the density of the stones, the shape of the stones, and it's got to be, and they're all sort of vectoring in the flow direction too, back to your cluster of northern pipes, and it's sort of like, oh geez, it's got to be there. It's got to be there, Could they end up being a Lukapa situation where you get an alluvial deposit, or maybe like a Smoke Creek?
Well, I guess that's, we've never given that a lot of thought, but the transported overburden, essentially which is quite, well, it's a formation, it's a sandstones and conglomerates and so forth, is that would be a real possibility, actually, because we've actually recovered a couple of micros out of it. You would never, in a small drill, find a commercial stone, you're exceptionally lucky for some reason. But so that would be a possibility, actually, now that you mention it, that these would have got in there, because it's a fluvial system. It's a fossil one. It's quite old. It's
just showing you a glimpse of my brilliance.
Yeah, I know. Actually, well,
you're just about to fall off your chair.
I know, but it's a case then of whether we could afford you.
But funny enough, back to the article I wrote. I actually the guys that it's called India Bore Diamond. They're mining that yellow stones. The concept of that, I think the concept was E9 or something, or one of the Ellendale pipes had been eroded.
That's right.
And they've all been going down this, and so he actually made contact with me and nice enough to say that that show me what they're doing. So obviously they're recovering the stones. So the story could be totally true, or not say it's false. It's just that its concept's correct or not correct. Obviously that's coming to fruition.
Because in some ways it's it's not identical situation, but it's a somewhat similar concept, I suppose, is that they're mining the diamonds that have been sourced out of the Allendale field, presumably 9 or 4 or both or whatever, and those alluvial channels that Bliner was chasing, I think down near 4 they were chasing what they call the J channel, and that these things probably originally when back in the 1970s when it was looked at were never really part of the story. You know, were never recognised or tested or whatever. The focus was on testing the lamprites.
I think the Indian bore's got the concept slightly different. I mean, you mentioned Blinder, who's now Gibb, right? I think.
Well, Gibb's taken over that project,
But whereas I think Indian bore, and what I'm implicating with Webb and Smoke Creek, it's just an alluvial play.
Yeah.
That you got the stones, you wrote it, it's going down this ancient river system, whatever.
That's right.
Whereas I think Gibb was chasing concept of how it was captured.
Yes.
In the rocks.
Yeah.
To me, that's slightly different in concept, right? Whereas I think that alluvial play it's a real possibility. I remember seeing that project, when they were trying to sell it and get investors. That's why I thought Webb, I guess is a bit like a new area, new system, new Argyle, Ellendale. We got those pockets everywhere, because this is actually out of that typical Kimberley area, right, where you are.
Yeah.
You're at the Arunta complex there.
That's right. It's on the southern margin of the North Australian crater, quite close to the edge, and that's, we always sort of thought, well, if you go north, the lithosphere should be a bit thicker, but anything can happen, when you're dealing with such a large field, there's a lot of blue sky, what if, you're not sort of looking at, one individual sort of thing. Maybe there's another, freak type of pipe there or whatever. I mean, this happens all the time,
Argyle was a freak.
Was a bit of a freak. Allendale was, at the time, was out of left field, and look how unusual Merlin is. You never sort of quite know. It's never quite identical to what we see in Mitchell's book on Kimberlite.
Well, I remember, Argyle, Ellendale, they're also lamprites when everyone was chasing Kimberlites, and the whole world was chasing Kimberlites, and then lo and behold, there's this thing called lamprite. And then you got Coangula full of microdiamonds, but they're all alkali pipes. And then you've got the stuff down in New South Wales where they don't really know where it's come from. No. Again, there's presence of alkali pipes and things like that. So it's diamond to me it's really sort of youngish in terms of concepts, and no one really understands. And
well, that's right, and it's it's a lot of the work's driven by geological dogma, as in the early days, that you couldn't get diamonds out of lamprites, so why bother looking at them, sort of thing. But but you just got to keep an open mind, haven't you? And like I say, diamonds are the best, indicator of diamonds. And if you've got a kimberlite field and there's microdiamonds there, well, surely they've come out of there, and that's the thing. And we just got to press on and keep drilling or whatever. And, ideally, we'd like to fly some falcon there and see what that turns up, because when these fields, like even in Canada, they fly falcon or whatever, and then they turn up more pipes that they couldn't see in the magnetics and so forth. So,
what would something like that cost in that area?
For our survey, probably a few $100,000. So it's because it works. It's like everything else. It throws up a lot of targets. That's the thing. Yeah.
It's always about something different, though, in every commodity.
Well, in what we're looking at, we're drilling mag anomalies, right? And then we say, well, there's a certain, none of them are diamond bearing to date, but we still got 250 to go. Yeah. But
better hurry up, mate.
I know, but it's possible that maybe there's other things in there as well. Yeah. And then, multiple ages, whatever. I mean, lithoquest in the North Kimberley, found a kimberlite which was diatreme fasces, which we'd never seen up there before, and structurally controlled, was different to what the ashmores and sepals, and then on top of that, it was in fact a falcon target.
Oh, okay.
From back in Striker Day.
Oh, okay.
And was never drill tested. It was pitted, but never drill tested. And and then on top of that, it has a different age to the ashmores and sepals, and so it's you have to throw the textbook away then up there. I mean, it was all sort of all known in terms of what was controlling things and how things were.
But that's the thing about diamonds. It's although everything happens at the same time, the same era and all that, but it's not about age, right? It's about when that thing tapped, whether it's tapped that diamond area where supposedly where diamonds are stable and often graphite, right. But it's the fact that magmas come up, tap that same area, and voila, you got diamonds. The guy next door didn't tap it. There's nothing.
Well, that's right. Yeah. That's right. It's I think you just got to. We think Webb's a good chance. We're very conscious. So we're always looking for: is there any information that suggests we should stop looking? But the fact that it's just sitting on that graphite diamond interface, sampling wise, it's interesting. So you say, well, some of the pipes are tapping deeper and the diamonds are there, so surely there's a chance. And in a business where the chances of finding something are pretty small, anyway. So,
but I think you guys spent in a lot of money, and I think that you're not too far away from a yes or no answer.
Well, that's right. We've narrowed it down, and if we had a couple of $1 million, we could probably test everything we wanted to test.
Yeah. Well,
we don't think we have to test every single last pipe there. But if we can find something that has some diamond in it, well, that'll certainly change the whole exploration dynamic and give it a shot of enthusiasm and make it much easier to raise capital.
I like the concept of the falcon thing. Maybe it's just that one that maybe you have not seen. That could be the one that's shedding all this out, which
that's right.
You don't know of,
possibly we're looking for something that's a bit unusual, not run of the mill for that field. It's sitting there somewhere, and because this spread of micros is sort of you can sort of see it in the data, and it's sort of you can sort of draw a circle around where we think it presumably is being sourced. And there are 40 or 50 targets in there that we've not tested, so forth. So.
Oh look, it's like everything. It's like when you guys did Merlin and you send this geo pegging all these holes and spend days doing it, and then get a message saying that it's all wrong because you guys stuffed up in the office, and the next target's found Hector, or I think it was Hector, wasn't it? Yeah. But look, Tom, thanks for your time. I think you've got a fantastic story. I hope you guys find your $2 million and do an IPO maybe.
Oh, again, yes.
Yeah.
No. Well, sure we'll. There's interest in diamonds, So forth.
I think there are.
People like the search, and.
I think I have a funny feeling if you guys did find what you're there, I think it won't be small because of what you're already seeing.
Well, that's right.
I don't think it's
you
small.
would think that the dispersion of the micro diamonds is so large, right?
Yeah.
That, and given that we keep finding pipes that don't have diamonds in, that maybe the one or the cluster or the little group that has them may be significant, must have shed a significant amount of diamonds from what was weathered off the top. So, as opposed to the theory that they're all diamond bearing and they've all contributed, one microdiamond each or something, I don't think that's the case. I think there's likely to be the right pipe there, and you know, it'll have the right mineral chemistry and the indicators as well. You know, we're not sort of trying to go against theory or anything like that. So
just don't be a stock deal, yeah, and not find the big fish.
yeah, well, that's the thing now. We're getting to that stage where we don't want to be the company that walked away and
Yeah.
didn't drill the last pipe.
Right. All right, Tom.
No worries,
Thank you.
Noel.
All right.
Good to catch up with you
Yeah.
again.
Great.